Hey, back again in the shed. I'm doing another comment response. The last one was really beautiful. Loads of people replied, and I think that comments are really, really amazing. I actually learnt heaps from reading everyone's comments, so thanks so much for commenting. One comment stood out as it asked me a direct question, or asked, I don't know if it was asking me, but it had a question in it. So I'm going to respond to this one. All right, I'm not going to try and do the screen thing. I'll just read it. It's from LPB. What do you think about exploiting people's fears to change their minds? I see it happen a lot now during COVID. If you don't follow these rules, your mummy and daddy will get sick, etc. But also topics you may agree with. If we don't change climate policies now, the planet will become uninhabitable in 10 years or whatever, etc. This is a great question. Fear is such a fundamental human emotion, and I'm not sure exactly how to tackle this one, but I thought by starting by saying that it's a really, really useful human emotion in general, survival skill and all that. There's a lot been said about, why it came about to protect us from saber-toothed tigers and things like that, back in the tundra or wherever. Yes, really, really useful emotion, and then therefore really, really easily exploitable one. And the examples that you come up with, COVID and the climate change one, they're just perfect examples, because let's just take it as read that let's just take the most unifying versions of those things. Like, COVID's a fairly serious illness, and it needed some steps. We can't necessarily agree on what those steps were, but it needed some steps to deal with. And climate change, that's a controversial topic. Let's talk about human industrialization as maybe a unifying version of that. Like, we can all agree that dumping plastic, for example, into the ocean, or having oil spills and things like that, or mass fishing and things like that, excess deforestation, these things are not good. Whether we agree with the theory of climate change, the exact theory of climate change as it currently is thought of. Hang on, I've just got to type a message. Okay. What a mess. Okay. That's professional, isn't it? I may or may not cut that out. So what's going on? We can be exploited in these senses because those are legitimate things. They're legitimate saber-toothed tigers, let's say, but they're on a scale that we can't really imagine. They're on a mass global scale. Statistically, we're told they will affect us. The COVID one, we were told it would affect us, and the climate change one, we're told it will affect us. And then we're told to take personal steps about it in the same way that we might learn to throw a rock and repel a saber-toothed tiger, or learn to sharpen a stick and stab the saber-toothed tiger. But we're not immediately connected to those things viscerally. But the layover of our evolution has given us fear of these things anyway. So what do I think about it? I'm heartbroken about it. I'm heartbroken that we've been manipulated into fear-based responses over these things. There are positive versions of these actions that we could have taken, and taking the COVID example as a great one. There's lockdowns. Lockdowns were clearly, it now seems clearly obvious that they were a ruse by our friends over in the Middle Kingdom to destroy the economies of the West, and it worked. Mwah, chef's kiss. It just worked a charm. Well done, our friend Winnie the Pooh, for that one. Very, very clever tactic, and it worked a charm. All of the clips of COVID in the early days, people dying in the streets, dropping dead in Wuhan, and all sorts of stuff. People being welded into their apartments. Most of that stuff was complete horseshit. It was concocted, and so that's someone taking somewhat of a legitimate fear. Pandemics have come out, and they come out of China extremely often. But this one we didn't need to respond in the way that we did. The lockdowns have destroyed economies, some maybe permanently, and a generational effect on our children is likely from them, psychological and economic. So I'm heartbroken about that one. And climate change the same. I know that similar policies are going to be suggested now to deal with this specter of climate change. They're going to demand economic lockdowns and things like that. And I'm absolutely heartbroken about it, even before it happens. I think it's going to be disastrous. And it's exploiting our fear again. There are positive versions of both of these things. We could, so for the COVID one, we could have instituted a bunch of social distancing, maybe done a bit of work from home, I guess, where possible, but not massive economic lockdowns. That was a big mistake. And then the climate change one, or let's say environmental practices in general, we can innovate and come up with solutions through technological means to circumvent these bad effects. We can institute marine parks where fishing is not allowed, for example, without impacting the broad economy. Or we can target the rivers, for example. There's about 10 rivers that spew all the 90% of the plastic into the oceans. We can target those specifically and try to get some reforms happening in terms of practices without shutting down the entirety of the economy to do it. And so that when I see that that's the general result of it, that people always jump to those measures. They get people into a fear response and then say, okay, shut it down, shut down civilization. That makes me extremely suspicious of it. It makes me think that really the agenda is not the solution at all. It's someone deliberately trying to harm the trajectory of humanity. And so that I'm wondering if I can tie this in as well. Someone else asked me, like, what do I mean by the good life, or what does the good life mean? I think that this gets brought in as well often. Like, there are certain qualities about the good life, leading a good life, and they're often on the chopping block when these fears come about. So, for example, I'll give an example of a few things that I think constitute the good life. Number one, having and raising a family. Number two, having an independent business which you yourself run. Number three, having property. And number four, let's say, this is just off the top of my head, there's more, but having freedom of movement, freedom of transport, things like that, independent movement. So I can come up with heaps more, but those would be some examples. They're basic stuff like that, which constitutes a good life. Like, you can have a bloody great life if you have all of that. If you have all of that, a family, a business, transport, and I've forgotten what I said beyond that. Property. You can just have an amazing life. That's like being a lottery winner. That's just an incredible life if you have those things. But those are the things that get attacked, and so there's a fear-based response, and someone who pursues those things and is able to get them, and we can talk about how to get them, even though it seems very out of reach for many people nowadays. Those things. Having those things makes someone resistant to these kind of fear-based responses. So if you can convince a large number of people not to pursue those things, or that those things are evil or they're destructive and that they shouldn't have them, and you even legislate against them having them, you create a populace that is kind of adrift, because those things and others that we could go into give a person a good life, in the sense that someone is not dependent on anyone. They're not dependent on the state, and they won't be as susceptible to these kind of fear-based responses. So I think that's why that stuff gets targeted, because people are not as compliant when they have those things. Having said that, once you do have those things, there's a different kind of fear that comes in, and that's part of the process as well. Once you've established those things in your life, someone threatens them, it's very, very easy and tempting to just zip up, shut up, and just keep your head down. I know that's where I am at the moment. I'm very much in that state where I don't want to put my head above the parapet. For example, I have a job that I don't want to jeopardize, so I just keep my mouth shut on most things. So that's a fear-based response as well. But it's a fear-based response based on preserving a good life for the sake of my family, not a fear-based response based on some ephemeral belief that my individual actions are going to, what did you say? Kill mummy and daddy and make the planet uninhabitable in 10 years. So it's a slightly different part of the spectrum, but it's manipulated in the same way. Okay, wow, this video went on long. I wonder if I can cut out that interruption in the middle, but I thought I'd leave it there, and I'll upload this and see what you guys think. Video responses to your comments. Thank you so much, everybody who replied, and thank you so much for staying subscribed to my channels. And one of the reasons why I always end the video by saying peace is that all of this stuff, all of this good life, it really depends on that. It depends on the existence of peace, and not in some hippy-dippy way, but in a sort of robust way where you would be willing to defend that way of life that is peaceful. Something like blessed being the peacemakers, blessed are the peacemakers, that sort of vibe. Anyway, I'm rambling now. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks so much to LPB. I wonder if that's a LPB. Initials maybe. Anyway, I don't know. Thanks so much for your comment, and stay tuned. And anyone, ask a question or something like that, and I may well respond to you with an overlong video. Cheerio. Out. And I almost forgot. Peace.